Hello and welcome back. Settle in, this one runs long, and it's best listened to in the dark, on the drive home or at 2 a.m., when you're pretending you're not thinking about someone. Tonight's story follows Wren Ashby, a meticulous and reserved paper conservator who relies on rules, routines, and numbers to keep her world under control. While preparing an exhibition under her own name, Wren discovers a love letter between two women that has been hidden by a powerful family for nearly a century. Her discovery brings her closer to Isolde Veralsang, the museum's wealthy and influential trustee, a woman who appears cold and commanding, yet is deeply careful never to let her power become a form of control. Amidst secrets buried in the archives, the lingering wounds of a past relationship that cost Wren her voice, and moments of longing measured in only a few centimeters, the two women slowly learn how to trust, how to choose, and how to give each other the freedom to say no. More than a slow and tender love story, this is the journey of a woman reclaiming her name, her voice, and the right to make her own choices. If you enjoy the story, the like button is free, and I'm told it does something. Now, the lights are down. Let's begin. You can tell me to stop, she said, quietly. The gap between her mouth and mine was one breath wide, and neither of us was spending it. Somewhere below us, 200 people were drinking her family's champagne and knew nothing. But let me go back to the night I grabbed her hand. My alarm went off at 5:40, which was 20 minutes before I needed it to, because I have never trusted a morning to start without supervision. I was out the door at 6:12, not 6:15. There is a difference, and the difference is that 6:15 is a woman who is late for something, and 6:12 is a woman who has never once been. Bus 9, seat 4, left side, 22 minutes. The seat and I have an arrangement. It saves itself for me, and I don't mention the tear in the vinyl to anyone who might fix it. 3 things I knew that morning, in order of how much they cost me. 1. The letter in the archive had been filed under the wrong number for 98 years, and the number was wrong in a way that was too clean to be a mistake. 2. I was going to see Talia that evening at my own exhibition for the first time in 14 months. 3. I was going to be fine about it, which was a lie so old it had its own filing system. The lab lights came on at 6:47. They take 4 seconds to decide to be lights. The hygrometer said 49%, which is within tolerance, and I looked at it the way you look at a friend who has started drinking again. 50% humidity, 20 degrees Celsius, and one woman who had trained herself not to need anything warmer than that. I mixed paste at 7:5, 20 grams. Wheat starch, cooked and strained, and if you have never made it, I will tell you that good paste has the body of soft custard, and bad paste is a betrayal you discover 6 years later in somebody else's handwriting. I throw out anything older than 48 hours. This is not fussiness. This is the only kind of grudge I know how to hold. 70% of my job is undoing repairs made by confident people. Somebody, decades ago, decided a tear needed tape. Somebody decided a page wanted to be flatter. They were sure. They were always sure. I spent my life with a scalpel and a swab, removing the certainty of the dead, and I have opinions about confident people that I have never said out loud to one. Here is the thing about being edited. It doesn't hurt. That's the design flaw in the whole system. You keep waiting for the part that hurts so you'll know to leave, and it never arrives, and 6 years go by. Talia liked my laugh, so I laughed more. Talia said my paper stories were a lot, said it fondly, with a hand on my arm, in front of 4 people who laughed, so the stories stopped. Not that night. Gradually. Over 11 months. I couldn't tell you which story was the last one. That's the part I'd like back, honestly. Not the credit, not the apartment, not the 6 years. I'd like to know which story was the last one and who I was telling it to. Erosion doesn't announce itself. That's the entire business model. When the exhibition proposal went out under 2 names and came back under 1, I congratulated her, out loud, in front of 9 people. I have replayed that room more times than I have replayed anything in my life, and the woman in it applauds every time. I filed it under things that would not survive review. Bex came in at 8:40, carrying a 400-year-old reliquary like it was a sandwich, and dropped her phone in the doorway. "That's it," she said. "That's the last one. I'm handing in my notice." "You handed in your notice in March." "That was a draft." She set the reliquary down with the tenderness of a bomb technician and looked at the hygrometer. "The building's fine, Ren. You're the one at 47%. "It says 49. "It says 49. Bex agreed. "And you've looked at it 3 times since I walked in." "Noted." By 6:47, I had already been someone else for 67 minutes. The opening was at 19. At 18:20, I was in the wrong gallery, holding a folder I wasn't supposed to have, because Marguerite had told me the north storage was being reshelved, and I have never in my life been able to walk past a box that was being reshelved by someone else. It was accession V 192700043B. The B is what got me. B means there is an A, and there was no A, and a museum with no A is a museum that has removed 1-2 pages. Rag paper. Decent condition. A fox mark near the fold like a thumbprint of weather. Dated 3 March 1927. Unsigned. The catalog card, typed by someone with a heavy hand on the E key, said correspondence. Companions. Of minor interest. I have read a great deal of correspondence between companions. This was not that. This was a woman writing to another woman at 2 in the morning about a hallway. About the specific hallway in a specific house, and what it was like to walk down it, knowing which door was hers, and how long she stood outside it, and that she did not go in, and that not going in was the loudest thing she had ever done. The archive box, which had held this for 98 years without comment, sat there like a witness who had decided to answer only what it was asked. The last line was this: "I would rather be chosen once than kept forever." I read it 4 times. I am not a person who reads things 4 times. I am a person who reads things once and files them, and this one wouldn't file. It just kept sitting on my desk in my head, refusing to be minor, refusing to be interest. The number was wrong, not sloppy wrong. Wrong the way a lie is wrong, internally consistent, correctly formatted and pointing at nothing. Somebody had put this letter somewhere on purpose, and the somebody had good handwriting. Behind me, the door opened. I didn't turn around. That's the detail I'd change if you let me have one. I heard the door, and I did not turn around, because I was 27 lines deep into 1927, and the present tense could take a number. Whoever it was stood there for 3 seconds and left. No footsteps after, just the door, closing at the pace of someone who did not want it to click. I put the letter in the folder. I took the folder with me, which was a policy violation, and I have since decided it was the single most useful crime of my life. The gallery at 19 held 63 people, 4 kinds of wine, and every version of myself I had ever been forced to be polite in front of. It was my show. My name on the wall, singular, for the first time in 6 years, treatment and research. Ren Ashby in 40-point type. And I had gone to look at it 3 times before the doors opened, the way you check a door. Talia arrived at 1922 with a fiancé and a coat she gave to someone else to hold. She looked wonderful. She always looks wonderful. That's not the problem. And if you think that's the problem, you've never met one of these. The problem is that she came straight to me, both hands out, and said my name like a gift she'd brought. And the 8 people around me watched a warm woman greet an old friend and adjusted their picture of me accordingly. Ren, both hands. Look at this. Look at all of this. Hi, Talia. This is Inez. Inez, this is Ren, my former assistant. Well, a laugh, a hand on my arm. We shared a brain for 6 years, so. And there it was. Not a knife, not a slap. It was a sentence that made correction look like ego. delivered warmly, in front of witnesses, to a donor with a glass in his hand who was already nodding. Assistant. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out, because what comes out? Actually, the research was mine. Actually, the proposal. Actually, the 4 years say any of it, and you're the difficult one at your own party. That's the machinery. It doesn't need to be cruel. It only needs to be first. She kept talking. Something about how she told Inez the story of the fern. She waters my old fern now. She mentioned it fondly. 63 people. 4 kinds of wine. And me, standing in the middle of my own exhibition, holding a folder, becoming furniture in real time. So I turned to my left and I grabbed the nearest elegant stranger by the hand. I want to be precise about this, because I have been over it more times than the applause. There were 5 seconds between deciding and doing, and I lived in all of them. Her hand was down at her side, half open, resting the way a hand rests when its owner has never once fidgeted. It was 30 centimeters from mine. The skin at her wrist went into a black sleeve so well cut it looked structural, like it had been engineered to carry a load, and the space between my fingers and hers had a temperature. I could feel her heat off her skin from 3 centimeters out, before contact, which is a thing I did not know was possible, and now cannot unknow. And I thought, she is going to pull away, and it will be worse than the assistant thing, and I will have to keep standing here anyway. 2 centimeters. Cedar, and under it something bitter and clean, like the inside of a cold building. Someone behind me laughed at something that wasn't this. A glass went down on a plinth. I heard all of it at once, and none of it, and my hand had already left. I took her hand. Her fingers closed. Once. Not a reflex. Reflexes are fast and stupid. This had timing in it. A bit of consideration. Then a decision. And the decision was warm and dry, and closed around 4 of my fingers, like a door being held. She turned 15 degrees toward me, the way a wall turns to become a corner. Sorry, I said, to Talia, to Inez, to the donor, to no one. This is... And I ran out of lie. I had grabbed the stranger and started a sentence I could not finish, in front of 63 people, and the silence that opened up was going to swallow the building. She looked at me. That was all she did. She didn't rescue me. She didn't say a name or a story or we've been seeing each other or any of the 4 lines I would have paid money for. She looked at me directly and she held it. 1 second is a glance. 2 seconds is a question. 3 seconds is a room rearranging itself around you. She held it for 9. I counted, because counting is what I do instead of feeling, and I want you to understand that at second 5, the counting stopped being a defense and started being a rope I was climbing. Her eyes did not do anything sentimental. That's the part I can't explain. There was no softness in it, no wing, no conspiracy. She had the stillness of a building that has decided where the weight goes. She just looked at me like I was the only object in the room with the correct accession number, and she did not say one word. And the whole of it, Talia, the donor, the fern, the assistant, the 6 years went quiet underneath it, like snow. Then she turned to Talia, still holding my hand, and said, "You'll excuse us." Not a question. 4 words. She walked, and I walked, because her hand had mine, and I would have walked into the sea. At the far wall, she let go carefully, giving me the 2 seconds to take it back first, which I did not use, and said 1 sentence. "Your paper's at 43% out here. Somebody should tell the building." And then she was gone through a door that did not click. I stood there with a folder full of 1,927 and a hand that had stopped being mine. She didn't say a word. For 9 seconds. I have never been so loudly answered. I went to the desk to breathe. Marguerite was 61 years old, had worked there for 34 of them, and was doing something to a clipboard that suggested the clipboard had let her down. Marguerite, the woman in the black dark hair, doesn't move. Who is she? Marguerite didn't look up. "That child," she said, "owns the roof you're standing under." I looked up Veral on my phone in the bathroom at 2015, like a woman checking a diagnosis she already had. Isolde Veral Sang, 34, controlling trustee. Her grandmother's name was on the founding deed, and her great-grandfather's money had a shipping past that nobody narrates at dinner. The Verals do not buy art, they acquire it. That's the verb in every profile, every press release, every plaque. Acquire. It appears 6 times on the museum's own About page. And I have walked past that page for 4 years without once noticing that it is a sentence about people. I had grabbed the trustee by the hand and lied about her badly in front of a donor. I put my forehead against the cold tile for 20 seconds and then went back out and talked to 11 people about foxmarks. At 8:04 the next morning, she was in my lab, not waiting outside it. In it, standing at the light table, with her hands behind her back and 30 centimeters of daylight between her and the letter, looking at V192700043B like it owed her money. "Don't touch that," I said before I registered who it was, which is the most competent thing I did all week. I wasn't going to. She didn't turn. I've been standing here for 4 minutes, deciding whether to look at the back of it. It's driving me insane. The back of it is a fox mark and 1927. I know. That's what's driving me insane. She turned around then. In the gallery, she had been architecture. In a room 4 meters wide with a hygrometer and a bin of failed swabs, she was still architecture, which is worse, because now the architecture was standing next to my mug. "Last night," I said, "I'm going to apologize now, and I'd like to do it once. You don't owe me an apology. I grabbed you." "Yes," in front of a donor. "Reginald," she said, "he's donated 40,000 in 9 years, and drunk considerably more than that in wine. Don't let him worry you." Which was, I realized later, the first thing she ever gave me. She could have said, "Don't worry about it." She gave me a number instead. She had noticed, at some point in 4 minutes of standing still, that numbers are how I get down off things. "I still grabbed you." "You did." She looked at me. Not the 9-second look, a shorter one, with a decision in it. Was it working? Was what working? Whatever she was doing to you. The hygrometer, which is a coward, chose that moment to say nothing at all. "She wasn't doing anything," I said. "It's not a thing you can point at." "No," Isolde agreed. "It never is." And then she took an envelope out of her coat and put it on the bench next to the paste. Cream. Heavy stock. My name on it in fountain pen, and I want to be clear that the handwriting was so good it was almost rude. "What's this?" "An offer. Don't open it now." "Is it a warning?" "It's not a threat," she said. "It's a door. I'm told they're standard." I stared at it. It sat on my bench with the confidence of a thing that had been written 3 times before it was written once. "I don't understand." "You held the hand of the woman who controls your funding, your building, and your contract in front of 63 people. And then you didn't sleep." She said it flatly, without triumph. "So you're going to spend the next 6 weeks trying to work out what I want? That's exhausting, and it makes people stupid." That envelope is a transfer, signed by me, undated, to any institution in the country that will have you, and 4 of them will fight about it. You can use it tomorrow, you can use it in a year, you never have to tell me. The lab was very quiet. The lights, which had taken 4 seconds to decide to be lights that morning, hummed like they were embarrassed. "Why?" I said. She took a step. Not toward me exactly, toward the light table, which is where I was, which amounts to the same thing and is deniable. And I have thought about that half step more than I have thought about most kisses. "Because you can tell me to stop," she said, "I'd like you to know that's available. 40 centimeters. Her voice had gone down without going anywhere. The sentences that had been full and expensive were 5 words long now. Then quieter. And the quiet did the work because I leaned in 8 centimeters to catch the end of one before I understood I had moved. That was the trap. She knew it was the trap. She didn't use it. I could hear my own breathing. I do not hear my own breathing. That's a legal formality, I said. If you like. People say that in contracts. They do. 3 words. Then 2. Then the sound of the extractor fan, which runs at 40 decibels, and which I have not consciously heard since 2022. And inside my skull the whole department went up at once. She's close, she hasn't touched you. She's close on purpose. She left the exit unlocked before she came in. Nobody leaves the exit unlocked. This is a technique, this is a technique. She is a verrol. This is a technique. And then, quieter, from the back of the room, filing calmly while everything burned. What if it isn't? And outside my skull, I was a woman in nitrile gloves, standing perfectly still at 8:07 in the morning, saying nothing at all. The hygrometer beeped. 3 short beeps. 47%. Isolde looked up at it, then at the door she'd left half open behind her, and closed it without a word. 47, she said. That's uncomfortable for you. And she left. I put the envelope in the drawer. I check 3 times a day. I did not open it. I checked the drawer 4 times. She came back on Thursday with a question about provenance, which is what you call it when a wealthy family wants to know if a thing is theirs. The B, she said. You flagged it. There's no A. There's never an A. Archives lose things. Archives lose things badly, I said. This is losing something well. Wrong number, correct format, filed alphabetically under a name that doesn't exist. Somebody sat down and did paperwork. Or somebody was tired. At 98 years distance, those look identical. I said, except tired people are inconsistent. And this is perfect. The only thing more suspicious than a mistake is a mistake that never repeats. She considered that. She had 3 kinds of silence, and I had started naming them. This was the one that was listening. It's a family collection, she said. You're saying a verrol hid it. I'm saying somebody with access, good handwriting, and 20 minutes hid it. That's most of my relatives. Then I'd start with the ones who had something to file. She could have ended it there. She had 4 clean moves. The provenance is settled. The family reviewed it in 1961. We don't speculate about donors. The latter is of minor interest. And I watched her look at all 4 of them and put them down. You're right, she said. It's hidden. I'll have the 1927 accession ledger sent up. It's in the house, not the building. She lost. On purpose, handed me the whole argument like a coat she was tired of carrying. You didn't have to do that. No, she said at the door. I didn't. She lost on purpose. I filed it under things I would need to understand before they understood me. Bex found me at 12:40 on the bench, sandwich cut on the diagonal, smaller half first. You've been weird for 6 days. I've been weird for 31 years. Weirder. She sat down and opened her laptop, because Bex brings her laptop to lunch the way other people bring a dog. I'm resigning, by the way. You resigned in March. That was Q1. This is a whole new fiscal position. The shared drive was up, and there was a tab I hadn't seen, gray, unglamorous, sitting between storage rota and condition log, labeled HVAC maintenance. When did we start doing HVAC? Bex closed the laptop with a speed that broke several handling protocols. Nothing, she said. It's an HVAC thing. Don't look at the HVAC thing. The letter gave us an alibi, and I took it. Every meeting was now officially about V19270043B. The archive became a place 2 adults could stand near each other and call it provenance. On the 4th one, she watched me make paste. That's it. That's the entire scene. She came in at 7:11, said nothing about why, and stood 1 meter back while I cooked 20 grams of wheat starch and strained it and set it down, and she watched the whole 6 minutes like it was a sport. You're staring. You're staring in one direction. If you go both ways, it breaks. Things do, she said. I looked up. She was already looking. She had that expression, not amusement. Something with more structure in it, and the room felt 3 degrees warmer than the room was. which I know because I have an instrument that says otherwise. Then she reached out and put 2 fingers on the rim of the bowl. That's all. The rim. Ceramic, still warm from the pan, holding 20 grams of paste I had made 6 minutes earlier with my own hands. And she touched it while looking at me, and she did not look away, and she did not pretend it was an accident, and neither of us said the word touch, and it was the most physical thing that had ever happened to me in that building. The porcelain went on holding my heat and her fingers with total professional discretion. "Careful," I said. "That's warm." "Yes," she said. "I noticed." Later, I learned Reginald had donated another 15,000 that morning, and that she had said 4 words to him and left. She had come here instead to watch paste. My phone buzzed at 14:02. Subject: just cleaning up the file names. Talia. C. 6 people, including my head of department and 2 board members, none of whom would read past the smiley. The 2019-2023 treatment archive. 4 years of my condition reports, my research, my hands renamed, every file ASHB, Re-Esc1. The email said it was for consistency. The email said, like before. And the machinery of it, the sheer craft, is that objecting means replying all. It means being the woman who cares about file names. She hadn't taken anything. She'd made it so that taking it back would cost more than it was worth. And she'd done it with a smiley face at 14:02 on a Thursday. There's a difference between Diventine who knows your routine and someone who protects it. I was still looking at the screen when Isolde came in with the 1927 ledger under her arm. She didn't ask what was wrong. She looked at my face for 2 seconds, then at the phone, then set the ledger down. "Your paste is 6 minutes old," she said. "It's at its best at 8. Not surveillance, not strategy." It was attention, and I had no forms for it. And then she left, and I stood there, being known. I got in the freight elevator at 18:52 with 2 boxes and no free hands, and the doors were closing when a black sleeve stopped them. 90 seconds. 4 floors. The freight elevator is 1.5 meters by 2 and smells of dust and cold metal, and has a light that flickers on a 4-second cycle like it's thinking about it. Neither of us said anything for the first floor. "Your floor," she said. "Which is it?" 3. "It's already lit." "Then you didn't need to ask." "No," she said. "Wool. That's what I noticed. Not cedar, this time closer than cedar." The texture of the sleeve, 4 centimeters from my forearm, and the small change in her breathing when the elevator jolted at floor 2, which was so slight that I only caught it because I had stopped breathing entirely to listen for it. Her hand came up, not to me, to the button panel to press free, which was already lit, which she had just said out loud was already lit, and her hand crossed the space where my wrist was and stopped. 2 centimeters. I could feel the heat of her knuckles. I could feel my own pulse doing something undignified against the inside of my sleeve. 90 seconds is a long time. 2 centimeters is nothing. She wasn't looking at the panel. Neither was I. Her hand came up. 2 centimeters. The doors opened 1 floor early. Bax was standing there with a trolley and the face of a woman witnessing a crime. Nobody moved. Isolde's hand was still in the air, 2 centimeters from my wrist, and she did not withdraw it quickly, which would have been an admission. She lowered it at the speed of someone putting down a glass. "Floor 2, Bax said. "Yes," said Isolde. "I'm going to 4. Then you want the other elevator." "I do want the other elevator," Bex agreed, and did not move, and let the doors close on her, still watching, like a woman memorizing a license plate. At floor 3, I got out with my 2 boxes. Ran. I turned. She was already pressing 4. "Your paste," she said. "Was it 8 minutes?" It was 11. Somebody distracted me. The doors closed on whatever her face did. I found Bex in the corridor 40 seconds later, having taken the stairs at a speed that violated 3 policies. "I'm resigning," she said. "You resigned on Thursday." That was before I saw a Veril nearly touch someone. The stacks are on 3 North End, and they are 18 degrees and 46%, and there is one lamp at the end of aisle 6, because the overheads were installed in 1974 by a man who hated paper. At 1852 on the Tuesday after, we were both under it. The 1,927 ledger was open on the trolley between us. Her grandmother's hand or someone's copperplate, immaculate. 400 entries, and every one of them in the same 4 millimeters of height. There, I said, 43A. There's an A. There's an A. I put my finger 1 centimeter from the paper, which is what you do instead of pointing, and then it struck. Once. Rule through with a straight edge look. She used a ruler. She got a ruler, and re-entered as 43B with a different description. Companions. Of minor interest. What did the A say? That's the thing. I moved the lamp 6 centimeters. You can read it under the strike. She didn't scrape it. She was too careful to scrape it. Isolde bent down. She came in from my left, and she was suddenly very close, and I had 4 seconds to observe the following: that her hair fell forward, and she didn't move it, that the ledger was 30 centimeters wide, and we were both inside 30 centimeters, that she smelled of cedar and cold building, and that she had stopped moving entirely in the way she does the stillness of a knife that has already decided not to. Letters. R to A. Private, she read. Private. I said, 2 initials and the word private. That's not a catalog entry. That's a woman being careful about something. Or protecting it. Same verb, I said. Depends who's holding it. She turned her head. 15 centimeters. Under the lamp, her face was doing one thing, and her mouth was doing another. You'd know, she said. You're the one who removes other people's repairs. Some repairs hold. Some repairs are how you know where the break was. That's support, I said, not repair. Support, she repeated. 2 seconds. It's a term of art, I said. I'm sure it is. Neither of us made it innocent. That was the whole of it. The word sat on the trolley between us for 3 full seconds, and she looked at me, and I looked at her, and we both deliberately declined to save it. Then she reached for the letter, and I said, wrong grip, and that's when the hands happened. Not touching. Understand this. She had the corner between finger and thumb like every confident person in 98 years. And I put my hands into the space above hers to show her the right way. Support from underneath, 2 hands, never the edge. And my palms hovered above the backs of her hands and stayed there 1 centimeter. Second one, the heat arrives before anything else does. A whole hand's worth of it against my palms with nothing in between. Second 2. The paper moves 2 millimeters and makes the sound paper makes, which is the sound of a held breath, and I am aware that I am also making it. Second 3. Her hands do not lift. This is the thing. She could lift. A centimeter is a decision she is choosing not to make, 4 times a second. And I can feel her choosing it in the way the tendon moves across the back of her hand and doesn't. Second 4. Neither of us has looked at the letter since second 1. Like that, I said. Like this. Yes. Show me again. There was nothing left to show her. She had it. She'd had it since second 2. I showed her again. Aphorism, free of charge, arrived at 1858 in the North Stacks. Being wanted is a room with 1 door, and being chosen is a room with 2, and she kept leaving both of them open. She set the letter down. She did not step back. I straighten frames, she said. What? You want to know something. You've been building up to a question for 20 minutes and you keep filing it. So I'll go first. She was looking at the ledger, not me. I straighten frames compulsively. Empty galleries, mostly. 2 millimeters, sometimes one. It's the only thing I do that isn't for anybody. I looked at the side of her face for longer than I had any right to. I checked doors 3 times, I said. The third one's from the stairwell. It doesn't count. Why doesn't it count? Because if it counted, it would be 3. She smiled. It was 20% of a smile, and it took the roof off. Whose initials are these? I said, and turned the ledger, because there was pencil in the margin, next to 43B modern pencil. 2 letters, not 1927, and I had been looking at it for 6 minutes without saying so. She looked at the margin for 4 seconds. We should go, she said. I stood in aisle 6 for a while after that, with my hand on a trolley. Then I went back for my coat, and the overheads in gallery 2 were off, and she was in there, alone, in the dark, and she reached up and moved the corner of a frame 2 millimeters and stood back to check it. For no one. In an empty room. At 1914, 2 millimeters. I had never wanted anyone so violently in my life. It rained for 6 days after that, and we didn't touch. The loading bay at 2310 is concrete and sodium light, and the door doesn't close properly. So the rain comes in for the first 40 centimeters and stops, like it's been told. The gala was in 11 days. We had been in the office until 23, with the board's paperwork and Reginald's list and the 1927 ledger, and we came out into the bay and she stopped under the light. And neither of us went to our cars. My grandmother, she said, buried a woman in a filing system. I've read the paperwork. It's very tidy. The rain went sideways, 2 meters away. R2A, I said. Agnes. There's an Agnes in 4 photographs, and no captions. She's in the 1931 group portrait, 2nd row, and she's the only one not looking at the camera. Isolde's voice had gone quiet. She's looking at my grandmother, in every single one. Nobody's ever mentioned it. It's not hidden. It's just nobody's ever mentioned it. That's not hiding, I said. That's worse. Hiding is at least a decision somebody made. Yes, she didn't take anything from her. I heard myself say it and kept going because the rain was loud and I was 31 and tired. Talia, she didn't take it. I handed it over, every piece. I helped. I made it easy. I made it pleasant, and that's worse than being robbed, because there's nobody to be angry at except the woman who was applauding. Isolde didn't say anything for 4 seconds. Then she turned toward me, and she was half a step away. Half a step is 30 centimeters, and 30 centimeters took her 4 seconds to spend, and I want to itemize them. The first one she spent looking at me, deciding. The second one she spent moving, and the sodium light came off the wet concrete and put an edge on her jaw that I would have paid to remove. The third one closed it to 20, and the warmth arrived the whole front of me, from collarbone to knee, heat with no contact anywhere in it, which is a thing I did not know a body could report. The fourth one she spent looking at my mouth, then back up. She did not pretend she hadn't. I did not pretend I hadn't seen her. The rain hit the roller door behind us in a sheet, 40 decibels of it, and then stopped as the wind turned, and in the gap I heard her swallow, 1 breath. That's what was left, 8 centimeters of it. My inhale would have been her exhale. I'm not going to take you, she said, quietly. You'd let me. That's the problem. My lungs stopped filing paperwork. Isolde, ran Talia's voice from inside. Bright, warm, caring, looking for me. At 23:11, because Talia has never once in her life not known where I was. Isolde stepped back. She did it cleanly, without apology, and she took off her coat and put it around my shoulders. The collar was warm. It was 34 degrees of her against the back of my neck. It was the single cruelest kindness anyone has ever done me. And she said, "Go home." Then she walked into the rain toward her car, in shirt sleeves, at 23:11, and did not run. I wore the coat home. I didn't wash it. 6 days. I counted them the way I count doors. On the 6th day, she was standing in the loading bay at 23:04 in the rain, with no coat on, because I still had it, and she had been there for 11 minutes. "You're wet?" I said. "You have my coat." I know you know." She pushed her hair back. It didn't help. "Ren, I've been standing here for 11 minutes working out how to ask you something without it being a question you can't refuse. I own the building. I control your funding. Every sentence I have is contaminated. The rain was doing something to the sodium light, turning it into substance. So don't ask," I said. "Say it. I want to kiss you." 4 words. Then quieter. "You can tell me to stop." A breath. "Now." Or in 2 seconds. Or after. Quieter still, and she had to say the last part twice because the rain took the first one. It doesn't run out. And here is what undid me. And it wasn't the wanting. It was that she stood there, soaked, 40 centimeters away, with all the power in the building in her pocket, and handed me the only thing I had never once been given, which was the ability to say no and have it mean something. Not a claim, not a conquest. It was a question held open in the rain, until I answered it. "May I said. Her breath went out of her. "Yes," she said. "God, yes." I put my hand on her jaw first. And then I did not move for 12 seconds. And I have replayed those 12 seconds more times than the kiss, because the kiss belongs to both of us, and the 12 seconds are mine, my thumb at the corner of her mouth. Her eyes closing, a woman who watches everything, closing her eyes in a loading bay, because I put a hand on her face. The rain coming off my knuckles and running down inside my sleeve, cold, all the way to the elbow. Her hand coming up to the back of my neck and stopping, 2 centimeters short, waiting, still waiting. I leaned back into her hand, which is how I told her. I kissed her, and she made a sound like something structural giving way. And after that, I stopped counting anything at all. The rain kept going. It had been going the whole time. I'd stopped hearing it at some point, which tells you everything. Later, I would remember the night in fragments. Her hands and how they shook once at the beginning and then never again. The 4 seconds in the doorway of her flat where neither of us moved. Cedar. Rain in her collar. The word please, said by a woman who has never had to say it. My name, twice, quieter the second time. The back of her neck under my palm. A light left on in another room because neither of us would go and turn it off. 14 minutes of not talking. The sound of the rain against the window at 1:40. And her, awake, watching me like a woman reading a margin. And in the morning, toast. Cut on the diagonal. Smaller half on top. She didn't say anything about it. She put the plate down and went to find her keys. I sat in her kitchen at 6:12 and looked at a plate for a long time. And I want to tell you I was happy. And I was. And also something in me went very cold and very quiet, because a woman who cuts your toast on the diagonal without asking has been watching you eat lunch for longer than 6 days. I went to the archive at 7:40 and pulled the box again. Not the letter, the box. Because a woman with a ruler had put 43B somewhere on purpose, and I had spent 6 weeks looking at what she'd hidden, and 0 minutes looking at what she'd hidden it with. Underneath the folder, flat against the board, there was a condition report. Mine. 2021. 4 years before I ever stood in a gallery holding her hand. Treatment proposal. V192 70043. B. Prepared by W. Ashby. 3 pages, my own handwriting in the margins, my own note at the bottom that I remembered writing at 18:20 on a Thursday when nobody read anything. I wrote, NB accession number appears falsified. Recommend review of 1927 ledger. Nobody had reviewed the 1927 ledger. The proposal had been declined. I had assumed for 4 years that it had been declined by a form, Beside my note, in pencil, in a hand so controlled it looked printed. She sees it. Ask her when there's no power over her to complicate it. And 2 initials, IVS, dated 11 March 2021. I did the arithmetic 3 times, because the first 2 answers were unacceptable. 4 years, 3 months, and 6 days. She had read it. She had read a treatment proposal from a 27-year-old paper conservator with no name on the wall, and she had understood that I was right, and she had written ask her, and then she had not asked me. For 4 years, 3 months, and 6 days. Because there had never once been a version of herself that could ask without the asking being an instruction. I sat down on the floor of the North Stacks at 7:52 with the 2021 report in my hands and made a noise I would not like played back. Devon found me there at 8:04. Devon is 26 and runs security and has the natural discretion of a man who has watched 400 hours of footage of people doing nothing. You all right? How long have you been editing the after-hours logs? He went completely still. It's a Verrall building. They train you. I'm not editing anything. Devon, aisle 6, Tuesdays. The overheads are on a timer and the timer says 19 and we've been in there till 1940 for 9 weeks and nobody's ever asked me to sign out. He looked at the ceiling for a while. 20 minutes, he said. That's all it is. I add 20 minutes. It's a rounding thing. For how long? Since March. March. Before the gala. Before the hand. Before any of it since March. A 26-year-old had been quietly bending a spreadsheet to give 2 women who didn't know they were 2 women 20 extra minutes in a room together. Who was in the north storage doorway? I said, at 18:20 on the night of the opening. Somebody opened the door and stood there for 3 seconds and left. Devon made a face like a man discovering he is in a conversation. She was going to say something, he said. She'd been in there since 1805. Then you started reading, and she just watched you read it. 3 seconds. Then she left. He shrugged. I only know because I was closing 3. It's on the camera. It's the least interesting footage in the building. She just stands there. The building had been on our side since March. It had simply never occurred to anyone to tell me, because everyone in it had assumed I could see. Talia filed on the Tuesday. Not a lawsuit. Nothing so vulgar. A memorandum to the board 2 pages, CCing 11 people, opening with the word delighted, formally recording her joint authorship of the discovery and treatment of accession V 1927004-3B. And requesting the exhibition credit be amended to reflect the collaborative nature of the research. Attached, an email. Real, mine, sent 4 October 2019 at 22:40 from my own account to hers. Maybe we'll look at the false accession numbers, the B ones. There's something wrong with the 27S. I wrote that. I was 24 and in love, and I told her everything. Because that's what you do. And she had kept it for 6 years in a folder. And I want you to understand that she probably didn't keep it for this. That's the part that makes me tired. She kept everything. She kept it the way a magpie keeps foil. And then a use appeared, and there it was, filed and dated and completely true. It proved nothing. It proved everything. It proved that a room full of reasonable people could look at a timestamp and conclude that a brain had once been shared. The board met at 15 on the Thursday, and I sat at the end of a table with 11 faces on it. And Talia was warm. She was so warm. I'm not asking for the treatment credit, she said. God, no. Ren's hands are better than mine, and everybody knows it. A laugh. 3 people laughed with her. It's just the research line. That's all. Both names on the research line, like before. And I'll withdraw the memo this afternoon, and we can all go and have a drink. 11 people nodded, because it was, technically, generous. Both names, Talia said warmly, like before. And 11 people nodded, because it was, technically, generous. Isolde got me in the corridor at 15:20. She looked at my face for 2 seconds, then said, "How much does she want?" "What?" "Reyes Kwan. She's freelance, she's got a wedding in October, and she has a mortgage in a city where that's a statement of intent. Everybody has a number. I'll find hers, and this ends by Friday, and your name stays where it is." I stood in the corridor of a building she owned and felt something go out, like a pilot light. Because there it was, not cruelty, not even a mistake exactly. She'd reached for it the way you reach for a light switch in your own house, acquire 6 times on the About page, 4 generations of it, and she hadn't heard herself do it. "You were going to buy her," I said. "I was going to solve it. With money. With the only tool I've ever been given," she said, and her voice was not quiet now. "And you're standing there looking at me like I offered to have her killed. It's a check, Ren. It's a boring, ugly, effective check. And on Friday your name is on the wall and this stops." "And what am I? On Friday?" She stopped. "You're..." "Say the end of that sentence." She didn't. To her enormous credit, she stood in her own corridor and did not say the end of that sentence, because she had heard it in time. "How much?" I said again. She didn't answer. That was the answer. We were extremely polite after that, which is how you know. 9 days. That's the number. I'm going to say it once, and then I'm going to tell you what it was made of. She didn't withdraw. That's the thing nobody warns you about. She didn't punish me, she didn't cool, she didn't do a single one of the things I had a defense prepared for. She was exactly the same, and 3 meters further away, and 3 meters is nothing, and 3 meters is a hallway you cannot cross in front of 11 people. Day 2. We passed in gallery 2, and she said, "Your paper's at 44 out here." And I said, "I know," and we both kept walking. And I stood in the stairwell afterward with my hand on the rail. Day 4, I drafted a message at 23:40. I know why you reached for it. Deleted at 23:44. Day 5, drafted. I'm not angry that you offered. I'm angry that it would have worked. Deleted. Day 6, drafted. 3, sent 0. Went into the drawer instead and looked at the envelope, cream, heavy stock, my name in that rude handwriting. Signed, undated. Any institution in the country. I checked that drawer 6 times on day 6. I did not open the envelope. I have never in my life wanted so badly to know a thing I refused to find out. Day 7. The coat was still in my flat, on the back of the chair, where it had been for 15 days. It had stopped smelling like her on day 9 of the first stretch, and I had kept it anyway, which is a thing I would like to file under something dignified and cannot. Day 8. She walked the long way round the mezzanine, so I wouldn't have to pass Talia at the desk. I watched her do it. It added 40 meters. She did it every day for the rest of the 9 and never once mentioned it. Day 9, 17:50. The board doors were open and there were 11 people inside. And she came out and I was there. And there was 1 meter of corridor and no possible reason for either of us to stand still in it. She stopped anyway. She didn't touch me. She couldn't. There were 11 people and a hallway and a claim on a wall label. And I could smell cedar from 1 meter, and it was worse than every centimeter we'd ever spent. Her voice went to almost nothing. "Tell me what's true," she said. 4 words. And my head went off like a filing cabinet in a fire. 40 documents in 3 seconds. She read my report in 2021. She wrote ask her. She waited 4 years because she couldn't ask. She walked 40 meters a day. So I wouldn't see Talia's face. She offered to buy a woman because it's the only verb she has. She gave me a door before she gave me anything else. She has never once said mine. The board doors opened. I told her nothing, which was also true. Bex came to my lab at 1940 on day 9 and sat on the bench where the paste goes and did not touch the paste because she has worked there for 4 years and is not a barbarian. "I'm resigning," she said. "Bex, no, this one's real. 15 years I'll be here otherwise. I'll be Marguerite. I'll have a chair and opinions. She picked up a swab and put it down. You know what she did on Tuesday? Veral. She came to objects and asked me whether you'd taken lunch. Not told me to check. Asked, like it was a favor she wasn't entitled to. Don't. You've been drafting messages for 9 days. How do you know that? Because you've been checking that drawer like it owes you money. She looked at me steadily, which Bex almost never does. What's in it? A door. Then why haven't you gone through it? And I heard myself say it to Bex. At 1941, holding nothing. Because love that requires no exit is just architecture around a person, I said. She built me a door before she touched me. She built it first. And then she reached for a check, because that's the family verb, and I'm standing here punishing a woman for having one reflex when she's spent 4 years and 3 months not using it on me. Bex was quiet for a moment. So go and say that. Say what? I forgive you for the thing you didn't do. No. She got off the bench and picked up her reliquary like a sandwich. Say the true thing. She asked you for the true thing in front of 11 people and you gave her nothing. And I know that because Devon told Marguerite and Marguerite told the entire building. She got to the door. Or you could stay. Terrifying, I know. I checked the drawer a 7th time. Then I took the coat off the back of the chair and folded it. It took 4 minutes. It should have taken 40 seconds. I folded it the way you fold something you are returning, which is not the way you fold something. You own sleeves in, collar flat, no creases where the shoulders go. And I carried it into the building on the morning of the gala and put it on her desk at 07:20. While she was in a meeting on 4, she found it at 9. I know because Marguerite told me, and Marguerite tells everyone everything, which is the closest thing that building has to a nervous system. She didn't send for me, she didn't email. At 11:40, I went past her office, and the door was open and the coat was still there, folded exactly as I'd left it, and she was working 30 centimeters from it and had not moved it and had not put it on. She looked at the coat for 3 seconds and didn't pick it up. Neither of us said the word. The gala was at 19. At 18:56, I was backstage, which at the Veral means a corridor behind the north wall, with a service door and a rack of chairs nobody has sat on since 1994. She came through the door at 18:56 with an envelope. Cream, heavy stock. My name in that handwriting. I took it out of your drawer, she said. Devon let me in. Be angry with me, not him. That's the 4th time you've... It's the last time. She held it out. She was 60 centimeters away, and she did not close any of it. You've had it 9 weeks, and you haven't opened it. And I know why. And I'm going to say the thing anyway, because in 4 minutes you go out there and I don't get to. The PA crackled somewhere. Someone laughed. Far off, 200 people's worth of far off. Isolde. I reached for a check. Her voice had gone down to nothing. 5 words at a time, then 4. I heard it come out of me. I've heard my father do it. My grandmother did it with a ruler and a ledger and a woman called Agnes. And it took 98 years and you to find her. And I still reached. That's what I am. I'm not going to make you a speech about how I'm not. That's not what I... Let me finish, please. She pushed the envelope into my hands. Signed, undated. 4 institutions, and they'll all take you. Whatever happens out there tonight, you're not trapped. Not in this building. Not in a room with her. Not with me. I don't need you to pick me. The service door hummed. My hands were full of a door. And I want to tell you what 6 years of being edited does, because this is the exact place it lives. It teaches you that everything given is a deposit, that every kindness has a ledger behind it, that you will be asked later, at a time of their choosing, to be grateful in a specific way in front of specific people. She had just handed me the only thing she had that could hurt her, and asked for nothing 4 minutes before the room. I don't need you to pick me, which is, of course, when I did. I put the envelope back in her hand. Don't. I'm not refusing it, I said. I'm declining to need it. Hold it for me. Then I heard my own name over the PA, and I walked out. 200 people, 4 kinds of wine, Reginald near the front, already 2 glasses in, and the board in a loose 11-person crescent by the north wall, like a weather system. And Talia at 3 o'clock in green, with Inez, warm as a kitchen. The plan was 4 minutes of thanks. I had written it on a card. I still have the card. The microphone weighed about 400 grams. I have held vellum that weighed more. I stood there with it and understood that I had not spoken into one in 6 years, and that this was not an accident, and that somewhere in the machinery of being edited there is a small, quiet department whose entire job is keeping you one step back from every photograph. There's a change to the program, I said. The room did that thing rooms do. Wall 4 was going to hold a Verrall seascape. It's a good seascape. It'll survive one night in storage. I nodded at Devon, who was standing by wall 4 with a case and the face of a man who had been told 20 minutes ago and had not asked a single question. We're hanging something else. He opened it. The frame went up. It's a small object, 2 pages, rag paper, a foxmark near the fold, and on a wall built for seascapes, it looked like a stamp on a door. Accession V19270043B. I said, filed in this collection for 98 years as correspondence, companions of minor interest. It's a letter. It was written on the 3rd of March, 1927, by a woman in this family to a woman called Agnes, who is in 4 of our photographs and 0 of our captions, and who is looking at her in every single one. Someone near the front said something and stopped. The accession number is false. The original entry was 43A. It was struck through with a ruler, re-entered and redescribed by hand in this building by someone who had 20 minutes and very good handwriting. That's not an error. Errors repeat. This one never repeated once in 400 entries. I looked at the crescent by the north wall. 11 faces, not one of them moving. The label reads, Discovered and Treated by Ren Ashby. And then I said the part I hadn't written on the card. There's a memorandum in front of the board asking for a second name on that line. It's supported by a real email that I really sent in 2019 at 22:40 to a woman I was in love with because I told her everything. Because that's what I was for. My voice did something on the last part. I let it. The email says, maybe we'll look at the false accession numbers. It's 14 words. It's true. It is the entire evidentiary basis for 4 years of my hands. Talia's face didn't change. That's what I'd forgotten. It never changes. Talia, I'm not going to fight you about it. I'm not going to reply all. I'm not going to hire anybody and nobody's going to buy you off. And I want that on the record in front of 200 people because I understand that's how this works. It works in rooms, warmly, in front of witnesses, and it has never once had to be cruel. I put the card down. I'm declining the amendment. The research line stays as it is. If the board overrules me, it overrules me in writing, with signatures, and I'll frame that too. I'm a conservator. I keep things, but I'm not handing it over pleasantly at 22:40 anymore. That department's closed. Nobody clapped. It wasn't that kind of silence. And then I turned and found her, 6 meters away, standing very still by the north wall, with a folded coat over one arm and an envelope in her hand that she had been holding for 11 minutes, like a woman guarding an exit. Isolde Verrall Sang controls this building, I said into the microphone, at a gala, in front of the board, Reginald, Talia, and a security guard whose radio was open. She controls my funding and my contract, and 9 weeks ago she gave me a signed, undated transfer to any museum in the country so that nothing I ever said to her would be worth anything. She's holding it right now. She's been holding it all night. She would rather I left than owe her. Her face went through something. She didn't stop it. So I need everybody to hear this from me, first, and out loud, before she can arrange it into a favor. 6 meters. I walked 3 of them. You were going to pay her. Yes, barely a word. Don't. She's mine to survive. The microphone weighed 400 grams and 6 years. And you're not a room I'm allowed to stand in. You're a person I'm choosing. Out loud. Now sit down, Isolde. She sat down in her own building, in front of 200 people, smiling like a woman who had just lost something on purpose. Devon's radio was open. He'd forgotten it was open. He'd been holding a seascape. It went out to every handset on every floor, and the front desk speaker, which Marguerite has never once turned down in 34 years. Finally, 200 people heard a security radio say finally in a building that had said nothing about anything for 98 years, and the laugh that went up was the sound of a roof coming off. Marguerite won 340. She'd bet 7 months out, in March, the week Devon started rounding the logs, and the spreadsheet tab said HVAC maintenance and had 14 entrants and 1 winner. How? I said to her, at 22:40, at the desk. I have eyes, said Marguerite, and a chair. Bex came past with 2 glasses and no reliquary. I'm staying, she announced. Congratulations. Don't. It's the harder choice. Anyone can leave. She handed me a glass. I'm the sacrifice here. Nobody's going to write that down. Now the part where nothing was fixed. The board did not applaud. The board went home and met on the Tuesday, and the memorandum is still open, and 4 of the 11 think I embarrassed the institution, which I did. Reginald's 40,000 became 0 immediately, in an email of 6 lines. There's a review of the trustee's relationship with staff, and it is the correct review to have. Isolde recused herself from anything touching my contract, and it cost her something she has never itemized to me. Talia sent a warm email on the Monday. I read 4 words of it and close the tab. The letter's still up. Agnes still has no captions in 4 photographs. We fixed nothing that night, and I'd like that on the receipt. At 5:40, my alarm went off, and she was already awake. She's always already awake. She was lying there in the dark doing nothing, which is the 3rd kind of silence, the one I never got around to naming. And when I opened my eyes, she was looking at me the way she reads a margin. She made toast at 6:04, cut on the diagonal, smaller half on top. She has never once mentioned that she does this, and I have never once asked her to stop. And 4 years and 3 months and 6 days is a long time to know how somebody eats a sandwich without being allowed to say so. The coat was on the back of my chair. At 6:12, she put it over my shoulders, in her kitchen, with nobody watching, which is somehow the version I keep. We went in together. Marguerite said, Devon said nothing, and his logs now say 19, because they don't have to lie anymore. Wall 4 gets the morning light at 8:20. I stood in front of it with a coffee and 2 pages of 1927, and the frame was 2 millimeters off true, and I put my hand up and stopped, because she'd want to. Because it's the only greedy thing about her, and I've decided the building can wear it. The letter hangs under one name now, and I'd rather be chosen once, out loud, in front of everyone, than kept forever in somebody's good handwriting.